The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. Season 7 continuing on the Sandy and Toddcast. It's more questions and answers with S&T.
We just keep going and going and going, and I'm loving it, and it's so much fun.
And we keep getting more questions, so we're going to extend it out maybe into an Empathecary down the road, but we'll talk about that all coming up on the Sandy and Toddcast. It's Season 7, Episode 7. It's Q&A with S&T next.
Crowds, arguments, loud noises, narcissists, energy vampires. Does that seem scary to you? It can to an empath. Sandy and Todd from the Sandy and Toddcast invite you to join them for a new podcast, the Empathecary Podcast. These two empaths know exactly what it's like, and they'd like to share their stories, knowledge, and ideas with you. Dive deep into the world of the empath. The Empathecary Podcast with Sandy and Todd. Find it anywhere you find your podcasts and like them on Facebook.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day, all while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Welcome to the Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
He is Todd.
And we are here with more Q&A with S&T.
It's so funny because nobody can see this, only we can see each other.
Right.
But I talk with my hands so much. So I'm like pointing at you going, he is Todd. So I guess it gives me that to say it like, he is Todd.
When you were doing radio, did you do that a lot? Like, did
All
you?
the time.
Yeah, me too.
All the time.
But don't you feel like, and I just did it with my hands, I made a gesture with my hands. Don't you feel like it kind of made you, they always tell you in radio, don't speak to a crowd, speak to an individual. Like
Yes.
You're having that conversation. Don't you feel like using your hands just makes it more natural? Because when you have a conversation with a friend, they are flipping around a little bit.
It does. And I was just talking about this with Dave last night because I have anxiety. Obviously. And
let me just say that's an understatement.
It's so funny because when I was I'm going to a
therapist.
No, although I probably need one. I'm going to a baby shower in the beginning of April. And I'm not very good with baby showers, any kind of shower. I am not good with those kinds of things because I figured it out over the years. I can speak in front of hundreds of people, and I have, and done great.
Yep.
Because they're sort of at arm's length, and I'm playing a character. In my mind, when I do public speaking, whether it's for radio or just giving a presentation, whatever it is, I am playing a character, and I can disassociate myself from it, and I'm fine. Never talk with my hands while I'm doing that. However, when I'm on the air or if I'm in a small group of people, my hands are constantly going. And I think it is like that personal aspect. I was taught by the best in radio, Dave. And he always said to me, talk to people like you're talking to them one-on-one and they'll relate to you. And they'll feel like you're their friend.
Right.
They'll feel like you're right there in their car or in their living room with them. And I always took that to heart and I did it. And so our studio had windows all along the front of it. And you'd look down at people, as they're walking through the building, and I'd be 100 miles an hour. My hands would be going and I'd be, jumping up and down in my seat. And so that's kind of funny you said that because it brought back a few memories of that. But yeah, so it's different when I'm public speaking, but when I'm on the air or when it's you and I, when it's anything small like that, I do talk with my hands a lot. Very demonstrative. So Big weekend. This weekend, getting ready for my new show, Empire Spirits. We're filming our first episode Monday night. This is Saturday morning. We're filming Monday night with the threat of a snowstorm coming, of course. Why not?
Right.
And we're going to be at the Braylock Inn in Cazenovia. And it's interesting because Dave and I have been there twice and stayed overnight and actually had activity. And so we're going to be actually investigating it for the show. Cannot wait.
I don't know why we got to get Bill on, right? Don't we have to have Bill on?
Yeah, we're going to have Bill on and have Bill talk to us about this because
I love it. That should be our first one for the next season.
It should be, because it's going to be so much fun and we're just having a blast. We've already got 2 definite locations booked. We're probably booking our 3rd today. Dave and I have to take a ride out to a place about an hour or so away and speak to the lady who owns the place and see if it's something that will work. And I think it will. Definitely think it will. And so we'll probably book her very soon. So we're 3 out of our 5 episodes booked already.
I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So that's a busy weekend getting ready for all of that stuff. And then next weekend,
apps.
Big investigation.
Yeah.
Big one. It's actually a 2-weekend investigation, but Dave and I can't go up this weekend, so we're going next weekend. So we'll be up there for that. Can't give any details on it at this point, but definitely we'll be giving details someday down the road, and I am looking forward to it. Lots of information coming to me, almost overwhelming coming to me on this one. So I'm really curious as to what is going to happen next weekend. And we're actually staying in a place, in an Airbnb, that is tied to the place that we're going to be investigating. So very excited. Busy time for investigating and getting everything situated. So exciting time. And it's good because this winter has been really difficult. I think not just for me, but for a lot of people. Empath-wise and just kind of blah-wise and long. And so we're sort of turning that corner and getting into the nicer weather and the hopefulness of spring and summer. And I always feel better this time of year because the horizon is ahead of us and all good things are going to start happening. So much love to everybody. I'm very excited about what's coming.
Great. I'll tell you what, let's get into questions.
Yes, let's do it.
And we'll see if we can answer them this time around.
Let's see what we can do. Big disclaimer. This is just our ideas.
Exactly.
Just our thoughts.
Yep.
We don't know 100% for sure, but based on experiences, that's what we can give. And actually, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people saying that they sort of understand what we're saying and can agree with us on it.
Or it's creating more questions for them, which is even better.
Right. And it's made them think a lot and maybe take a different perspective than what they had before. So that's the whole idea, is to open up a dialogue and be able to discuss this with each other. All right. Our first question of this week. This came from somebody who sent me a message. Was there ever anything that you thought might be true, but you have since changed your mind about it? You want to take that one first? You want me to take that one?
You take it, because I'm sure you've thought about it. So then that'll give me time to think about it and I won't be listening to what you say. Okay, go for it.
Well, for me, honestly, there's a lot of things, because I think as we investigate more, as we experience more, as our abilities develop more, as our open-mindedness develops more, it's ever evolving. It's ever changing, the things that we think. You could go into just an investigation with one mindset and come out of it after your experiences with something completely different running through your mind. But one thing that's really changed for me is that I grew up my whole life not really believing in reincarnation and saying, oh, that's a little far-fetched and that's kind of crazy. And then things happened to me, or epiphanies started to come to me over the last handful of years that made me maybe sort of think that, well, maybe there's something to it. Maybe there is the idea that we have soul groups and we have this predetermined choices that we make as to whether we want to move on or we want to live a different life and we want to learn new lessons. And just all of that sort of started to swirl around in my head and make me think more and more about my own life and things that have happened to me. And they say that when you're a child, that if you have been reincarnated, that sometimes the veil is so thin that you can remember things, or things will affect you in ways that sort of bled over from your previous life or a previous life. And so I started to think back into my childhood and recurring dreams or nightmares that I would have and things that would happen to me that I sort of started to make more sense of as an adult at this point in my adult life, and different things that have happened to me. And I'll give you one example. I really truly believe that I was alive during the Holocaust. I do believe that, and this is something that, to the question, never in a million years would I have even considered until the last handful of years. And I do believe I was alive during the Holocaust. I do believe I lost my life during the Holocaust. Through pendulum work and sort of meditation, I've kind of come to the idea that I lost 2 children, and I can find a lot of parallels in my life today to my life that I believe I had back then, ties to the Jewish heritage, ties to the way I live my life today, ties to the thought processes that I have, all kinds of different things that I can tie in there that maybe I wouldn't have looked at before. Now I look at them differently. And I do believe that we come here to learn lessons. The sort of half joke in life, Todd, is, what is the meaning of life? Well, I do believe that the meaning of life is to learn lessons and to make this life the best life that you possibly can for yourself, and to learn all of those lessons. And so, yeah, definitely reincarnation is something that has really changed for me. There are other things that I feel really tied to that I guess you could say a quote unquote, you're going to joke now, a quote unquote normal person shouldn't feel that passionate about or that tied to. Like, you just, if you know, that kind of thing. And yet I have other things in my life that I feel like I may have somehow been tied to. Gettysburg, for example. When I go to Gettysburg, I feel like I'm home. Like, I feel like I'm going home. Why do I feel that way? Why am I so incredibly tied to that location on Earth? And I always feel like I'm literally going home. And it's not a technical thing for me as far as, the Confederates were along this ridge and this is how this formation did this. It's always for me a very personal thing. It's very personal. Like, I spent time there before. So things like that have really changed in my life. So I'd say number one for me has been the idea of reincarnation. I've gone from kind of like maybe a 1 or 2 on the possibility scale to like an 8 or 9 on the possibility scale in just the last handful of years. What about you?
How about asking the question one more time so I make sure I have it correct?
Was there ever anything that you thought might be true, but you have since changed your mind about? I love this question.
Well, I mean, yes, so many things. We talked a little bit in this series about how I had thought about becoming a pastor. So there was a very strong belief in religion and all of that at one point in my life. And I'm not here saying it's false.
Right.
What I'm saying is my mind changed on that. And I saw some holes in the theories, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Little things like places that were reportedly haunted. And so you went through your life going, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. And then nothing really happened. I mean, think about this. How many times have you heard stories about people experiencing things in their home, and not to disregard that they believe that, but then you go in and you do an investigation and you find out the wrapping on the walls is the hot water pipes in the walls
right,
and stuff like that. And so I think I've also had that experience, and I know it's something I talk about a lot, but it was one of those aha moments for me. I believed my house that I lived in was not haunted, that nothing ever happened. And then all of a sudden things were happening. So,
right.
There's so many things in life, but certainly in the paranormal world, I think you go into it. There's no classes on this. You can't go to school. There's no textbooks. Right. And so you go into it having learned what you've learned through maybe reading stories, maybe reading accounts of, maybe watching films on, maybe watching TV shows about. That's what you go into this. That's the kind of knowledge you have when you go into this. And so you take that knowledge and you believe it to be true to a certain extent. There are people that you would almost bet your life on, like, if Michelle Belanger says something, I'm going to bet my life that, she's really feeling those things or seeing those things or experiencing those things. So you go into it with the knowledge that, most of this is probably true, but then you come out the other side and your experiences change your belief system. So I don't necessarily believe in ghosts anymore.
Right.
I believe that there is energy there. And it could be, intelligent. It could be residual. It could be, we watched a show last night that this person was just hanging on because they like to be there.
Right.
Oh, it was a mind-blowing episode of Kindred Spirits this week where the communication seemed to be that they missed life. And back to your point earlier, you got to live your best life. This person missed the experience of life. And so they were kind of still hanging out. So so many things in life. You think you know the answer, but the best thing you can do is always have an open mind that answer isn't 100% the truth.
Just a quick example. You mentioned places.
Yeah.
And one that came to mind immediately for me was Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, because all my life growing up, you'd watch like those shows, the top haunted places in the United States and USA's scariest places. And Bachelor's Grove always made its way into that. And you'd watch it. And I grew up thinking, oh my God, this place is crazy. I'd love to get there. And so we had the chance to do it last year. And so what did we do? We went to Bachelor's Grove. And what I expected and what it actually was were two completely different things. Now, that's not to say that there aren't apparitions and there aren't light orbs and there aren't all kinds of crazy things that happen there. But you had your
own experience to now garner some information from.
Exactly. And when I went there, the feeling for me was just, first of all, it was beautiful. In its creepiness, it was beautiful. And I say that because it had been so desecrated and just so abused over the years that it almost was like it was finally at peace, because finally people stepped in and there's a police that patrol it now and rangers, and people actually are taking care of it now, what's left of it. But it was also like just this incredible feeling of sadness. And as an empath and as a medium, the entire time I was there, it was just, there was no, like I said, there's no, figures walking through the woods. There's no, nothing, no hands are coming up out of the pond that looks disgusting and creepy. Nothing was going on there, but just an incredible sadness. And it's one of the places that I will be forever grateful that I visited, because it sort of made me realize as well that it's not just about the creepiness factor sometimes. It's about the personal factor, the feelings that you feel, the experiences that you have when you're in a place. The thrill seeking. There's a lot of people that try to sneak in there in the middle of the night and do thrill seeking and everything. I didn't even bring equipment because I wanted to experience Bachelor's Grove for what it really was. If I ever go back, I will probably bring a couple of handhelds.
Yeah.
Because now that I know what I'm dealing with, I think it would be beneficial to be able to kind of learn some But it's just a great example of going in thinking one thing and coming out of it with something totally different. So it's really important to be open-minded and really experience things to help you understand them. And you may change your mind in the process. So,
we were talking earlier about how, excuse me, don't edit this out.
I won't.
We were talking a little bit about how we've been doing this season and it's all been about questions and answers. And as the season's gone on, we've gotten more and more. And somebody that we've been friends on Facebook for a while, but we've really not had conversations. Listened to her first episode this week and now she's kind of hooked. And so now she's got questions and she's like, where can I get, just send me questions, whatever you got. So I've got a couple from her, but for me, and kind of going back into this, for me, when I first got into it, it was thrill seeking. I wanted to see a freaking ghost, right? I wanted to be scared. Scare me, you mother,
Sure.
But now, I know now and I know better now that really what I want to do is I want to know the backstory of why this stuff is going on there. What's the real story? And we started talking, this individual and I, about losing family and about how, for me, the sadness is now that my parents are gone. There are a few people that have memories about them, but their memories, that will be gone soon. And when I go, those memories will be gone.
Yeah.
So I know that my parents made an impact in this world. I know they did. I know the people that they touched and had friendships with and all that. And it was a very powerful thing. My parents were not, extraordinary individuals. They were typical people with faults and great things about them and all that kind of stuff. And what I want to be able to do in my investigation is remember some of those stories. I don't want my mom and dad, their only legacy in life is to be that headstone on their grave in that small town in Wisconsin. That's not what I want. Because when and you know this by, your interest in cemeteries. You can drive by some of the largest cemeteries in the area and there's no visitors. Nobody's going there. Nobody's going there to learn about Marvin and Jerry. Nobody's going, and so I want to experience those stories. Even so, maybe it's the last time somebody will experience a story because I went and investigated. That's what I want.
I will agree with you. In the beginning, I was full force. I just want to see something. I want to hear something. I want,
I want something to float in the air right now.
Right now. I'm going to walk through that black mist because God only knows what's going to happen. Right?
Watch me. Look at me. I'm in the black mist.
Exactly.
I'm Sandy.
But it is really as my abilities have evolved, so has my understanding. And as my understanding has evolved, so has my need and want to help, to tell their stories. In my experience, a lot of these energies, their main goal is not to scare people. Their goal is to be recognized and acknowledged. What's your biggest fear is being forgotten. Yeah. Whether you're in life or in death, your biggest fear is to be forgotten. And so that's why I do Sandy cemeteries, because there's so much history in cemeteries and there's so many stories that need to be told. We were in the Rome, New York cemetery a month or so ago. I had just gotten a new piece of equipment and we were just out driving. And I said, Dave, let's go in and see. It was too cold to get out. So it really wasn't very fruitful. You can't really be in the car if you're going to, try some stuff. And I don't investigate cemeteries. It's important to say. What I do is allow them to come to me if they want to speak to me, if they want to communicate with me, because some of them do. Some don't, but some of them do. And we stopped at this one headstone of this couple. And it literally said on the stone that he had drowned. They literally put that he had drowned.
Wow.
And so a lot of findagrave.com is my BFF. And a lot of times I'll go in. And so sometimes you can find their stories and it sort of plants that seed in me to look further and to dig deeper and to see how far back the family goes and if there's any other stories. And I really feel like by researching these families And these people, it tells their story. Even if it's not going out into Sandy cemeteries, it's something that now someone else is aware of.
Right. That story now has a new life to it, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I was in Bachelor's Grove, what are the chances of this? To this day, there was a gentleman whose stone I took a picture of, and I looked him up, and lo and behold, he has ties back to Herkimer, New York, which is 20 minutes down the road from me, that I spent tons of time in. His family, he was originally from Herkimer, New York. He's buried at Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. What are the chances of that there would be that kind of tie? So what did I do? I researched that family back, went and visited his family in Herkimer at the cemetery, left flowers. I really love flowers. I think flowers are a beautiful tribute. And I've left so many flowers on graves as I explore and research. But it's telling the story. It's learning. It's learning for myself, but it's also learning their stories and being able to help them and help the living and make sure that their stories in some way live on.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, what this has become. This is me being able to sort of close the circle and really bring it to a different level and make sure that these people are not forgotten, because nobody wants to be forgotten. Everybody wants to make an impact in some way.
Just after I die, don't bring flowers to my grave. I will. Listen. Stop.
I'm gonna whip them at your stone.
No,
I'm gonna whip them at your stone.
You'll probably dance on my grave, but I will haunt you if you do that. Bring a Big Mac. Just bring a Big Mac and set it right on the stone.
And a Diet Coke, because every time I talk to you, you're like, I just gotta run out and get a Diet Coke real quick, and then we can do this or that. I'm like, all right, whatever, Todd.
What's our second question?
All right, moving right along. This is a good one because this is kind of what's the word I want, where it's sort of like there's a debate on this.
Okay.
This is from Carolyn, and Carolyn is a psychic medium, intuitive. She does a lot of stuff, and she says, here's a question for your Q&A episodes with Todd. This happened during a Zoom reading for a client. It looks to me like an energy or orb, but I could see the light in real life out of the corner of my eye too. Would love to know what you guys think, and also any tips on connecting with these energies. I've had them a few times in various ways now during readings. This one is the strongest without a doubt. You want to take that first?
So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm trying to remember. You showed me that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Kind of flew in front or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's literally on the Zoom. I just watched this last night. She's literally on the Zoom, and you can see it come down like from the top left corner and kind of just come right down to the bottom right corner, which is interesting to me.
Now so this was actually the film of the Zoom itself, the recording of the film itself. Yeah. And the Zoom was in the person that she was reading. The orb was in the reading person's room, correct?
It was in her shot, in her Zoom.
Of her or of the person that she was? Oh, so it was with her. Interesting.
Yes.
So I'll just talk briefly about orbs, because I think orbs kind of get a bad name. And again, it comes down to this whole, well, that's not a ghost. That's just energy.
Right.
It's just an orb. And that's always bothered me a little bit because, again, well, if you're looking for ghosts, no, it's not a ghost, but it is an energy. And it could be an energy of so many different things. It could be, who knows? It could be energy from an individual who is living or past. It could be energy that's floating around in the form of some sort of stray electromagnetic, who knows, right? It is an energy. And I think that, we have to give a little credence to that. No, if you're investigating and your job on TV is to find ghosts so that you can get ratings, you're not going to give too much credence to a little light anomaly. But in the same respect, it's something. And
Right.
and to me, there's some sort of energy around you. It could be an individual. It could be the energy of someone. Somebody may be trying to contact you. It could be, it could be some sort of guardian angel type thing going on behind you. It could be an energy that's trying to connect with you to give you information about the person you're reading on the other end. There are so many. How do we possibly know? We don't. But my answer to that is we need to stop disregarding these things.
Yes.
Yes, we can say, well, that's not a ghost. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have spirits or ghosts, but there is energy around you. But we need to acknowledge that. That
Right.
does mean something.
Well, first of all, we do need to stop disregarding it completely. And I used to disregard them completely. And then I saw some interesting ones that I'd never seen before. And it's really important to be able to, before you do anything else, when you see an orb, it's really important to be able to debunk
Yes.
bugs and dust, because you can be sitting completely still in a room and there can still be dust flying around.
If the
completely
heat kicks in
possible.
and you have air heat in your house, boom, that
Right.
can happen. If somebody moved off to the left or to your right, that could happen as well. So yeah,
Now-
please debunk this stuff before you
Exactly.
go. Right.
I've been in investigations where it was freaking freezing and no bugs are flying.
Right.
So if you get an orb, it's definitely not a bug, because bugs don't really fly in less than a certain number of degrees. So you can usually debunk that if you're in a certain situation.
Lens flare is another thing. If there's
Lens
light,
flare.
please.
I've had people send me things, Todd, with pictures, and it's obvious lens flare. And it's hard because sometimes they want to believe that it's their aunt or their mother or their best
Sure.
friend who passed so badly. And sometimes I feel like, you know what, if that's something that makes them happy, if that's something that makes them feel good and fulfilled, I'm not going to completely ruin everything for them. I'm going to kind of maybe dance around it a little bit, make things a little bit better for
Let me
them,
do
a
that
little
for you. Send them to
softer.
me.
I know.
I'll be the one to go.
I know.
Bitch, that's a lens flare.
It's really hard.
It's not Grandma Moses over there.
Exactly. But I'll tell you, I have seen some orbs that I just don't know. Like, I've seen orbs that literally pulsate,
Yeah.
that are literally pulsating. And I can't debunk that no matter what I do. I do believe that orbs are real. Or can be real. I find it very amusing when people find faces in orbs, because there's so much matrixing that goes on in those kinds of things that it's just, it's crazy. There's no faces in orbs. Somebody said they saw a cat in an orb once. I'm like, there's no cat in an orb. But I do believe that they exist. Orbs to me are energy. Now, what is that energy? We don't know. I do know that for me, I've experienced orbs that usually, if I see a lot of orbs, they'll usually come along with activity.
Right.
They'll usually come along with EVPs.
Or experiences where you feel like a change in the temperature, or you feel something touch you, something like that.
Exactly. So is there something to orbs? I 100% believe that there is something to orbs. They are definitely energy. Now, I looked at hers, and I looked at her several times. It was interesting because it looked like it had an intelligence to it. It didn't float like maybe a piece of paper or a piece of dust would.
Yeah.
It didn't look like a bug to me at all, any kind of insect. It was a little odd shapen, which is also interesting to me, but it moved in a pattern, like from the top corner to the bottom corner, that didn't look to me like it would be something random. So I definitely think something was going on. And let's not forget, she's intuitive. So as she's reading, she is calling on energies.
Right.
She is calling on these energies to her spirit guides or the energies to help her get through this. She may be attracting energies who want to come through and speak. So I feel like it's 100% like a real orb there. And again, my feeling is that there's just as many things that we can mistake for orbs as things that are orbs, but it's just a matter of being experienced and being able to debunk or confirm that there's something going on. That one I definitely do.
If you know, here's the other thing. Like we always talk about investigations and having layers of activity, meaning that you see an orb that you can basically confirm is probably an orb. Mm-hmm. You have something on a K2 meter that goes off, and you get an MVP, an EVP at the same time. Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah. You know, that makes sense, right?
Right.
If it's just this random thing, you know, even if you get like a K2 hit, just a random K2 hit, you know, there has to be some thread to hold it all together.
Agreed.
So,
and like she said, any tips on connecting to these energies? Well, you already are. I feel like, especially as an intuitive, she's already connecting to them. Anybody is connecting to them if you're open to. If you're investigating and there is an orb and there is an EVP, you have connected to this energy. If there is a spike, you have connected to this energy. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an intelligent energy, but what I think is that sometimes it could be that these spirit energies are feeding off of these orbs or vice versa. And so you are already connected if you're getting any kind of activity, any spikes or anything like that. You know, you have to a lot of times look at the big picture. You can't dissect it too much because everything is connected in the spirit world. It's all connected. And there's so much we don't understand. So I just look at it as take what you get and look at the big picture of it. And I think that that's super important to help you to be able to connect in any way that you can.
And also, you know, listen, if you're sitting there and you're doing this Zoom and, you know, you're watching it back or whatever, if you can in some way remember when that may have happened, maybe you got a shot of information just at that moment.
Right.
Or maybe you felt a shift in the energy of the person you were reading or the situation that you were reading. So I think, you know, try and be, again, as observant as you can.
Yep.
All the senses. So.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's interesting. The place that I got all the orbs that were pulsating, it was in
I don't know why. That just kind of, it's a little creepy to have somebody say pulsating.
It was, though. They were literally like blinking. And it was not bugs. It was not lightning, but it was cold. It was January, I think it was. It was really cold. And the camera was set up in a room by itself. And it was confirmed that this house, I mean, we investigated this house. This house was active. And when we reviewed the video afterwards, they literally were like pulsating. And I had gone into that room at one point. We didn't investigate in there, but it just felt heavy. And you just knew that there was some sort of residual, some sort of energy in that room. And then to see that video afterwards, it was just astounding to me. So definitely, I think that orbs can be real.
Definitely,
not every
definitely.
orb, but definitely. Yeah.
Rain Man.
Sounded like Rain Man. I know. I was just going to say, it sounds like Rain Man.
Yep, definitely. Definitely orbs can be something. Definitely. All right, let's do our spiel.
You can find the Sandy and Toddcast on any of the platforms that you normally find your podcasts, including YouTube and Twitter. Be sure to like the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook to keep up on the latest goings-on, including each week's episode. You can also join our group, Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, for more fun. Stay Weirdos is a safe place to share your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and random inappropriate memes without judgment. Sandy and Todd also have a podcast called the Empathecary Podcast. It's for empaths, by empaths. And if you know an empath, you might want to listen too. Find and like the page on Facebook. And finally, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure where to start, Sandy and Todd can also help with that too. Mindgarden Media is their latest project where the dynamic duo can guide you every step of the way in your podcasting journey. Editing, producing and consulting is what they do. Like Mindgarden Media on Facebook or email them at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for staying weird.
And we've got one more episode in this series, and I believe we've got some questions that we're going to bump to the Empathecary Podcast after this season because they really kind of fall into that. So we've got plenty of content still to come in the next several weeks.
Yeah, and then we are throwing around some ideas for season 8, which I think will be very much fun.
I think we need to have some guests, some of our favorites back, some new people. Like I said, we got to get Bill on and have him talk about Empire State.
I'd love to have Bill on. I think Bill would be a hoot because Bill has had some experiences of his own that were quite interesting. Think of the stereotypical Italian 50-something-year-old man who loves, all kinds of Italian foods and everything. Now put him in a ghost hunting situation. It's craziness.
Let me ask you this. Did he have spaghetti shooting out of his ass?
Almost.
Because he was scared.
Almost. He had an interesting experience the first time he investigated at the Braylock, the place we're doing on Monday night.
That'll
so we'll
be
make
good.
him tell you that story.
All right. That's all still to come in the next several series. But until next time, bye.
Bye.